Superhero Stuff You Should Know is part of the Greenlit Podcast Network.
Hey, this is Ben from Superhero Stuff You Should Know, and I have an important announcement for you guys. At the end of every single episode of Superhero Stuff You Should Know, you might hear us shout out to our fans, one of whom is Matt Herring, who was one of the original Superhouse fans. He's always given us his support, and now it's time that we support him. We've just recently found out that Matt has been diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. And as a cancer survivor myself, I know personally that there's a lot of emotional and financial strain that comes into that. His wife, Kelly, has set up a GoFundMe account at gofundme.com/f/Matthew-kicks-cancer039s-butt. And hopefully you can help reduce the financial strain to that, as well as some of the emotional strain that comes with that. Again, that's gofundme.com/f/Matthew-kicks-cancer039s-butt.
Matt Herring was the first, I guess you could say, true Superhouse fan. We were Superhouse at that time. You know, the first fan of this podcast and what we do here, and has always supported us, talked about us, and he's from a town close to where I'm from, and so we share that as well, and just a huge superhero fan, and, you know, nerd like the rest of us, and now he's going through that, and if you could donate just at least any amount of money to that link that Ben just said, that would be truly appreciated. Just hang in there, Matt. You'll beat this thing soon.
Riddle me this, riddle me that. Who's afraid is a big black bat? Look here, it's Fat Man's one and only partner. This little acrobat turned orphan liked Saturday morning cartoons, which is odd considering he's an adult man. How can you be an orphan when you're already 45 years old?
I don't think Robin is 45 years old.
I'm 17, you pieces of shit. I don't know why you guys don't understand that.
To be fair, he is kind of tall, though.
He's got a mouth on him like a sailor. Ha ha! Look at him. And that package, too. Are you telling me he's a little kid?
Man, this is getting weird. I do get this all the time. I don't know why. It must be these tiny short shorts I have. But anyway, as tight as yours are, I don't see fucking anything, so there's that. Also, Bats, why aren't we already fucking up this guy?
Well, you're captured, and, I mean, Edward does bring up a good point. You do seem kind of old to be 17. I mean, I would kind of expect you to be teaching a class instead of actually taking classes.
Why does everyone always say this? I am 17 years old. I am running around with my green package and my red shirt, and I'm punching bad guys. Right now I'm captured, but fucking somebody free me. God damn it. What the fuck is going on?
Oh, look here, Brucey. I'd keep an eye on him. I'm a little worried about him giving Chase a joy-gasm.
I'm more worried about him breaking his hip.
Oh, you're in on it too, Batman? What the fuck, man? I thought you wanted a boy wonder, which I am.
That codpiece and those rubber nipples are not appropriate for a boy. That costume is more appropriate for a 45-year-old man.
I'm 17 and a half, goddammit.
I think Alfred was onto something in making that suit. I think he was trying to tell me we shouldn't have adopted you because you're old enough to adopt children yourself.
When the fuck are you guys gonna stop making fun of me and we're gonna actually capture the Riddler? That's what I want to know.
Well, if I do rescue you, Robin, can you make me one promise?
That depends on what it is, Bats, but sure, go ahead.
Can you join Alfred for bingo night on Fridays? He's always asking me to, but I have to patrol the streets of Gotham.
If Alfred would stop making me those fucking lame-ass burgers and milk, that's just not healthy, man. I can't be having milk farts when I'm going out into the goddamn city every night.
Well, the rubber suit really seals it in.
I'd rather have prune juice. I mean, what? Sorry, I didn't mean that. I mean, protein powder and shit.
I heard prune juice. Edward, I think you heard prune juice, didn't you?
I certainly did. He sounded like a big old Lehu, yes, sir.
Riddle me this. Why are you such a piece of shit, Ed?
Actually, that's a good point. Why are you such a piece of shit, Ed?
Oh, the tables have turned now.
I'm a classic narcissist. I just want to be like you, Bruce. Don't you see the mole? You better do something quick, Fat Man, or Robin here's gonna be smoking.
That sounds like it's from another universe, but anyway, yeah, I agree with him actually this time. Yeah, fucking Bat, hurry the fuck up. I'm tied up here.
I was going to do a bit of a riddle, but fuck it. Batarang!
Ah, finally, free.
Let's get him, Robin.
Let's leap into action. I've been waiting for this.
Bummer.
Welcome to Superhero Stuff You Should Know. Once again, we are diving into Zack Snyder's Justice League, Snyder versus Whedon. It is once again your co-host, Ben Wan, the man who knows too much about Batman, and as usual, my co-host.
Hey, if it's up, then it's up, and then it's most definitely stuck, never down. 'Tis Andrew, everybody. Thanks, Cardi B.
And he is back from the dead. It is Zach Brown, back to the land of the living.
That's right.
You resurrected him.
Thanks for bringing me back with that mother box and a little electricity. I actually wasn't dead. I was just in a coma. It's my Kryptonian physiology. If you'll notice, when I was shirtless, the wound was healed. So I was actually healing while I was dead. But I do appreciate the resurrection. And I'm wearing all black now. It's going to be my thing.
Very good. Very good.
Is there an explanation behind that, or just no?
I just felt like it was time for a change, and I really dig your look, and I was like, it's time to put away those primary colors of a boy and take on the shadowy darkness of a man.
I suppose
Yes.
I should be flattered. Yes.
Yes, because becoming an adult always means becoming a lot darker, so.
That's right.
Yes.
That's exactly right. I had to get one in there for the Superman fans.
Unfortunately, in order to bring Zach back, Dustin Lee Massey sacrificed himself as well during that. So I had to make another promise on another grave to bring him back to life. I guess that's my thing now. So Dustin will not be joining us, but hopefully we can get this mother box thing working again to bring him back. So anyway, Zach, now that you are back to help us out, unfortunately Dustin is not, but since you are back, we left off with Snyder 17, Whedon 1.5, so we did not give any new points to Whedon during the time that you were gone.
None. Not a 1 for that guy.
not even 1 or even a 0.5. But we left off on Chapter 2, The Age of Heroes. I wanted to give a few corrections department things before we dive into the rest of this, but I think in our sketch for Darkseid and Steppenwolf, my Darkseid said that he had 10,000 worlds to conquer. Actually, in the movie, it's 50,000 more worlds, so which is even worse. So I think my Darkseid is a lot nicer than Ray Porter's in the movie.
Is Earth first, by the way, or is it like in the middle of the 50,000, or?
I think it's 50,000 more worlds. So like
More.
he had to conquer. I think he had to conquer 100,000 worlds, and Earth is like right in the middle,
Oh.
or something like that.
Is that
I think
how
that's
it
what it
works?
is. I think so. Yeah. I might have to do another corrections department now that I just had to say that.
All right.
but-
Sorry.
as
I
far
was
as I
wondering that, though,
know.
since a sketch we did or something.
It just happened to be first or in the middle, but
Yeah.
whatever the case is, we'll dive more into that when we get to those Darkseid scenes. But the other one is that I did mention that there was an actress who played an Amazonian who defended Snyder, and the fact that their costumes showed off a little bit more skin and more muscle, and that actress was Erin Blevens. So I just wanted to give her name
yeah.
because I hadn't mentioned her name beforehand because I just hadn't looked it up. I just knew of her, but I didn't know who she was. So now I do. So that's her name. Anyway, we left off on the end of Chapter 2, The Age of Heroes, and I thought we would actually start discussion here before we dive into Chapter 3 because there's been some interesting discourse online about this. I wanted to start this off by asking everyone about it. There's an article that came out on Collider that basically said that they felt the history lesson where, the flashback battle where Darkseid is defeated by the old gods and the Amazons, the Atlanteans, King Arthur, and all that. They felt it sort of diminished Darkseid as a threat, and that this was potentially one of the things that Whedon did better in having it be Steppenwolf, so that Steppenwolf being defeated beforehand, it doesn't make him seem. I mean, it might cripple Steppenwolf as a threat in their eyes, but at least with Darkseid is still sort of left to be a big bad, as opposed to Steppenwolf already kind of being a failed henchman seeking to redeem himself anyway. So I wanted to start off by asking, do you feel that Darkseid's defeat in the flashback sequence makes him a lesser villain? What do you guys think? Starting with Zach.
I don't think so. I really enjoyed getting a chance to see Darkseid in action. And I think one of the things about Darkseid is that his power also comes from everyone that is under his rule. I always think back to that episode. It was one of the last episodes of Superman, the animated series, where Superman really just lays the smackdown on Darkseid. And he does really just defeat him, but still these people that he was ruling over come to his aid. So he's got all these people that will still support him, and his apocalyptic army and everything that I feel like gives him power. And maybe he doesn't have his Omega beams yet either. It seemed like he has to get the anti-life equation to master that. So I'm not sure, but I don't think it diminished his power in any way. I mean, it took an entire army of beings from Earth and the Green Lantern and everything to push Darkseid back. That's just like one creature. Whether you're looking, I guess you're looking at these parademons and his ships and everything, but still he's that much of a threat that all the powers and the old gods of that world had to come together to stop him. So no, I don't think it diminishes his threat in any way.
He just needed Granny Goodness there.
Dude, your Granny Goodness is so good, man.
She's one of my favorite characters.
Maybe she wasn't Granny back then. She was young Goodness.
That's right.
Just Mother Goodness, maybe?
Maybe. Or even younger.
She was a fine piece of ass goodness.
Still rocking the black
lipstick. She was
lipstick.
that the whole way through, actually. I take it back. Strike it from the record. She was that way the whole time through. 18 years old and plus. Let me disclaim this shit enough for the internet. And especially as a grandma.
Yes. Andrew, your thoughts on the defeat of Darkseid?
So, when was he defeated again?
In the flashback.
Their nightmare sequence, like with the trench coat?
No, the flashback.
To win.
They
The main one with
Darkseid.
like Zeus and King Arthur and shit?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
What we've been talking about.
I didn't know that was the exact scene. Okay. I missed the main thread there. So I don't think it has that at all. But maybe because I'm just a comic book fan and I know a little bit about Darkseid going in, I'm like, that's not gonna fuck up Darkseid, right? Like it's just the comic book knowledge you walk into the movie with, and no, I don't think so. The only thing I don't like about that scene is like they bury the men bury the mother box in what looks like 2 feet of dirt. You know what I mean?
This'll handle it.
Yeah, it was the men not handling that as well as the Amazons. Put it that way.
Or the Atlanteans.
The Atlanteans as well. Men handling it the worst. King Arthur, you fucked up. You look cool.
He's a flawed
though.
character.
Snyder gets points
Yes.
for coolest looking King Arthur on screen, probably, but in my opinion, anyway. But
At least until his adaptation, yeah.
but dumb handling of the mother box.
Whoops.
If they at least said, I'm going off the tangent, I'm sorry. Points to Snyder again. Not a big deal from Darkseid, but if they had like had Merlin pop up and be like sealing sealing the dirt with magic, and then they cover it, it would be like, oh, okay, this is cool. But it just looks like it's like buried in 2 feet of goddamn dirt.
I also would have loved. Now that you mentioned it, I'm just like, oh man, how cool would it have been if Jim Hansu showed up as the wizard,
Bro, if they combined that shit,
yes.
if it wasn't Merlin, if it was his wizard, points again to Snyder.
Amazing,
If that would happen, yeah.
Amazing.
Points to Ben for that one.
Oh, thank you. yeah, I just came up with it. To me, I agree with you guys. I think you show how difficult it was to defeat him. It's not like he just shows up and Ares immediately uses the axe on his shoulder. Like they needed a lot. Wonder Woman only says it 200 times in that whole flashback about like we needed to all join together in order for this to happen, and that had never been done on any other planet. Like it said, like it's set up basically that's a difficult thing. And also, like, this is many thousands of years ago, and Darkseid's supposed to be much younger back then. It might have helped if Wonder Woman referred to him by his original name, which is, I looked this up, Uxas is the name of it. It's spelled Uxas as his real name.
I was going to say Uxas.
Or Uxas. I was going to say Uxas too, but I don't know if that's it. So I looked it up, but we got some dialogue. Maybe if we set that up that his name was Yuxas, because she already says his name is Darkseid, so his name is he's known as Darkseid already in the flashback battle. But maybe if they had some dialogue about it, but honestly,
don't worry,
don't
they'll
really
cover
care.
that in the New Gods movie. So
yeah, of course, yes. that upcoming New Gods movie. But I think a bigger issue, though, is I don't think we should judge the threat of a certain character by something that happened many centuries ago. Otherwise, we'd be judging every Batman on how badass he is based off the reaction of how he reacted to his parents getting killed.
Right.
You know, like, it's just not the same thing. They're just at a different point in their development. Like, this Darkseid, if this Darkseid had Omega beams, he would have used that shit on everybody back in the final battle. He didn't even have Steppenwolf with him. He didn't have Granny Goodness with him. DeSaad looks like he might be descended from those mystics who did the mother boxes, but it was basically just him and a bunch of parademons on that. And he also looks like twice as big in the current version of Darkseid compared to when he was in the flashback battle. So I feel like this is just kind of a criticism on this. I don't think it matters that much because of how just built up that, hey, like, he was only defeated this way, and there's kind of an impossible way for us to replicate that again, is sort of what we're trying to go for dramatically. Not like, oh yeah, all we needed was Ares' axe. Like,
that is true.
Like,
they'd have way less people. The Justice League is like 6, right, in this movie? So
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, I could see the point where, you know, generally the good guys lose in the first act. But this is not necessarily the case, but it is like, it kind of sets it up for, you know, he's going to come back even stronger and bigger. Watch the fuck out. You know, he's got a shitload of parademons now. And I don't know. I mean, yeah, I didn't actually notice that until you mention it.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like every horror franchise is just like, oh man, Michael Myers was defeated in the last 3 movies. He's less of a threat now in movie 4. Like, no, he's still killing people with a knife. Like, it's still,
right.
It's still a threat because he just comes back, you know, even more ridiculous as ever. Let's dive into chapter 3 called Beloved Mother, Beloved Son. So we ended with Wonder Woman asking the others, where are they? Where's the rest of the Justice League? And so we're answered that by introducing Barry Allen himself. So Barry Allen's introduction from Zack Snyder is it's a long sequence, but it's actually very cool in terms of how many things are set up. We have the idea that Barry is always late, which is a common thread among the Flash comics. We also have him meeting Iris West for the first time. We have a demonstration of his speed where he saves her from the car crash. We have the fact that he's out there looking for a job as he's applying for a job at a doggy daycare. And of course we have his heroism on display in the fact that he saves Iris's life. Also set up as the fact that Iris already knows right now that Barry has super speed because she sees his face before he speeds off. So that's kind of cool. Warner Brothers decided to completely get rid of this entire sequence, and Joss Whedon, instead of just saying like, it's taking up too much time, let's just introduce his speed through the scene where Bruce recruits him. Instead, they decided to shoot a whole other scene in the prison where Barry's introduced signing in to see his dad, only for a tough guy behind him to complain, and he uses his super speed to doodle on the guy's face as a joke. And that's what replaced this very nice and artistic Speed Force scene that we got from Snyder. So, Snyder versus Whedon, where do you stand on this? Starting with Zach.
An act of heroism replaced with an act of douchebaggery. I don't know. I just remember, like, you telling me that scene right now with the drawing on his head. I don't even remember it. I really
no. I remember that one.
I really liked the scene with Iris. I thought that was cool. I did laugh at him taking the hot dog, and then I thought it was even funnier that it was for the dogs. I thought he just grabbed it for himself to eat later. I was like, that's kind of funny that he thought about that. Like, oh look, I'm so good with the dogs, and I've got like the hot dog snack and stuff. So yeah, that was just having him introduced with, you know, doing something heroic was already pretty cool. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a great addition. Sad that it was cut in the first place.
Yep. Andrew?
Okay, so to play devil's advocate for just a half second here, for a flash second, I can see for a second why Whedon cut it, because it really has nothing to do with the plot.
I agree.
It has fucking absolutely nothing to do with the plot. However, the way it was executed, the editing, the emotion that you get from it, it's, you know, you ask yourself, I was asking myself, does every little scene have to be exactly related to plot? Every single second of this movie? You know, this is art, and it's about being moved from images on screen, and it does that. I think mainly with music and editing, and I mean, of course, performances and stuff, and his direction. But I think a lot of that was probably found in the edit. Maybe, I don't know, but or how they storyboarded it, and that's what they always wanted. But you know, yeah, it's not super plot. You don't really. It's not necessary, really. But I like that it was in there. I was sad it was cut. It's also like Snyder doesn't take himself too seriously, even though he's like really like being serious for a second, showing that they're like kind of love at first sight, really. And then he turns and gets the hot dog, and it's just like, oh, okay, we're back to comedy now. But I thought it was going to be because of his appetite, and he was going to be eating, and then he just gives it the dogs, which was maybe 1% awkward. The dog part of it, like, I don't know. It's nice that he was giving it to the dogs, but I think it deflated it too much or something from the heaviness that I was feeling from the other part. That's a really nitpicky thing.
At the
Does
end?
not ruin it. Yeah, at the end of it.
Okay.
Does not ruin it for me. I'm glad it was in there. Point to Snyder.
Agreed. I agree. Neither version is that essential to the story, whether it's him saving Iris or him doodling on the guy's face. However, judging from the individual scenes themselves, there's so much more to Barry's character in this. Like, I'm just like, in an ideal situation, you know, if this wasn't in the Justice League movie, this would be the opening scene to his solo movie where he meets Iris this way. And then maybe they say, like, this happened before Justice League. And then, you know, a few months later, and then he meets Iris again, and they continue that for Flash's solo movie. But we learn, again, like, so much more details about him, his humor, all that we just don't get with the face doodling, which also, here's the funny thing. I'm just like, if you're right, if the whole point of this is to cut this movie down from 4 hours to 2 hours, why would you reshoot a whole scene for just a lame joke to introduce Barry when, like, to me, if you're like, hey, you really got to cut scenes, I'm just like, okay, well, I think that the scene where Bruce throws the batarang at Barry and he slows down time and catches it is a fine enough introduction to his super speed for a condensed version of this movie.
Right.
You don't have to shoot this other thing of him doodling on the guy's face. The only other possible reason they did this is because the scene in the Joss Whedon cut does feature Mark McClure, who played Jimmy Olsen in the Christopher Reeve Superman scenes. We mentioned this earlier, where he, in the original Snyder cut, he's the cop guarding Superman's statue. In the Joss Whedon cut, he's the prison guard who, when he sees Barry, he alerts Bruce Wayne on his phone to Barry's location, because apparently Bruce has an inn over at that prison. I guess they were trying to explain how Bruce would find Barry, but that's not really something I would consider to be a plot hole anyway, because we're talking about Bruce, the world's greatest detective, and Alfred, who's like former SAS, who are able to track down this one kid who probably isn't really covering his tracks that well on it. So I don't think that we really needed that little subplot anyway, just to have that one little bit and for a lame joke that I don't think anybody was really laughing at. So anyway, point to Snyder. Snyder 18, Whedon 1.5.
Let's talk about this before we move on, just real quick. There's a little break from canon to here with Flash, because he's already got his powers, but he hasn't started work at the police department yet either. So
that's true.
There's
I pointed that out before.
Oh, you have already. I'm sorry. I forgot.
Well, in 2017.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know. I guess they'll explain in the Flash movie if it's still somewhat connected to Snyderverse. Who knows what's going on with that at the time of this recording? But I don't know. I mean, I don't think that's a big deal either. I just think it's an interesting change.
I think it's interesting, and I wonder if it's deliberate.
Could be.
I wonder if they deliberately were trying to change the origin, because in the first Barry Allen Flash origin, he was in the police lab, and then the lightning struck him and the chemicals in the police lab, and the combination of that created the Flash. But I would say maybe there's a deliberate choice there in terms of taking it out of the police lab. Maybe he is struck by lightning, but that lightning was a special lightning. Could have been a Speed Force lightning, and if you know the comics, you kind of know what that bolt of lightning actually came from. So we'll dive into that when we do our Flash episode for that, but a little preview on that. So that was Snyder versus Whedon. Snyder 18, Whedon 1.5. The next part, we were going to go over some parts that are kind of very small differences or stuff that is exclusive to Snyder. So I'm going to call that open floor, where just like if you have something to chime in about it, you can chime in, but we're not going to do a formal, like, what do you think, Zach, Andrew? This is going to be,
Okay.
because like there's not really a lot to talk about.
Chime in randomly, you said.
Chime in random. Yes.
You're giving him an open invitation.
Chime in randomly, Zach. So after, all right. I'm trying to think. Okay, so after the Flash saves Iris, we go into the scene where Steppenwolf is interrogating Atlanteans, which is a very dark and horrific scene where he uses there's a spider-like device that was not in the Whedon cut at all that he uses that many are saying is likely the Snyder version of Starro.
Yeah,
because
I saw that, yeah.
it has that shape, it attaches to the guy's face, it has this weird telepathic power, and Starro has telepathic power, so that does have an interesting connection to the Justice League. I wouldn't put it past Snyder to put a Starro Easter egg in that form in here. It also makes Steppenwolf so much more threatening in that he has that, the guy's like, I will never betray my people, and Steppenwolf's like, you already have. And I'm like, okay, he's so much better in this. It's not even funny.
Yeah.
And then we get a brief scene of Lois and Mourning and looking through pictures before we have another scene of Diana and Bruce looking over like who the team is going to be, the fact that Aquaman turned them down. But the main focus of the next part for Snyder versus Whedon is on Victor Stone, is on Cyborg. So let's talk about the contrast in Cyborg's introduction between the two movies. We already know who's going to win on this one, but I might as well go into it.
Whedon, right?
Cyborg in the Whedon cut.
Is he even in it?
Is he even in it?
Snyder's version is an extended flashback scene with we see Victor as a football player and losing his mom in a car accident. We see his dad vowing to save him. We see the full extent of Cyborg's powers. We actually see Cyborg fly. We see him basically inside the internet and use his powers to help a struggling waitress get money so that she can survive for herself and her kids. There's a subtle moment too where he walks away and a couple like stares at him and like run away, so people still fear him. And it ends with Cyborg protecting the mother box from parademons who are like still hunting for it. Whedon replaces all of this. He has one little scene with Dr. Stone and Cyborg just to set everything up, where Dr. Stone wants to use the mother box for more studies and Victor doesn't want him to. And just to demonstrate his abilities, he levitates in front of his dad. And that's the only thing that we really see in terms of his power in the Whedon cut. So I know who's going to win this one, but over to you, Zach. Snyder versus Whedon.
Obviously, it's Whedon. I mean, just a masterfully crafted scene. No, I mean, what can I say? Yeah, it was just such a vast difference and an improvement. Like I said in the first episode, and I remember the scenes of him playing football being in a trailer and watching the movie and thinking, like, where was that at? It never showed him before his accident, I don't think.
They only showed pictures of him. They used Snyder's footage just to have still photos of it in the Whedon cut, which is stupid.
Yeah, that is dumb. I don't even remember that. So, yeah, it was really great to see him before and to get to see his mother and the accident that, led to him becoming Cyborg, and again to see his act of heroism helping out the waitress. And that the whole it was very abstract. It was almost surreal, like him going inside of his mind, and I think he looked normal at that point, but he saw like the bank and everything, and he could see all the people's bank accounts and all that stuff. That was really cool to me. Of course, that wasn't in the Whedon cut, but I liked seeing that because it was interesting, kind of seeing it from his interior point of view, I guess. That whole abstract idea of the bank and his perception of technology, from within his mind and the computer's mind. So yeah, that was kind of cool.
Nice, I agree. Andrew,
can't even make a joke about it. It's just Snyder, man. I mean, it's just obviously so much better. Who would like the Whedon one more? I don't know. And also the narration in the scene too, where he's like in VR internet world. It was like, you will have powers, and it's almost like Man of Steel kind of, but for Cyborg. Like you will be able to do this, and you will have this, and it's like really sets up Cyborg like, oh damn, I guess this guy is a Justice League member, kind of. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, and the ATM scene is one of my favorite scenes in the movie too.
Same.
So just already doing heroic shit. He's doing heroic shit at his most broken, in a sense, right? So even when he's really in the dumps of his life, he's still helping people in a big way. So I think that's why that scene works so well. And yeah, I mean, what else can I say? It's so good.
Yeah. Whedon's scene lacks any kind of emotion in comparison to this. Like, it's one of the best parts because it makes us care. It makes us care about, like, you care so much more about this one waitress who's in 2 scenes than you ever did for anybody in the Joss Whedon cut.
Yeah.
That waitress is played by C. Amanda Maud, who is a Chinese-American actress who lives in London, who went on Twitter when the Snyder Cut was released and said, like, hey, like, I was cut from the Whedon cut. I don't have access to HBO Max here because she's in the UK. Like, can you tell me if I'm in the movie? And she just got flooded with tweets and followers being like, oh my God, and you were part of like one of the best parts and all that.
Awesome.
And then she finally got to see the movie, and her response was #restore the Snyderverse.
Yeah.
So, also another shout out to Karen Bryson, who plays Victor Stone's mom, Eleanor, who is in like 3 scenes and just knocks it out of the park. Like, you immediately, that scene where he makes the touchdown and he looks in the stands and she's like crying as she's cheering him on. You feel that connection between mother and son, which is impressive considering how little screen time she has.
That's true.
So immediately feeling the connection between, like, if I felt that the previous movies sort of lacked that type of emotional connection, this movie has it just all over the place in spades, especially with Cyborg. And then back when we reviewed the Joss Whedon cut, we were just like, Joe Morton is wasted in this role of Silas Stone. He's just given nothing to do. And then I see this version, and then you get to that hospital scene where he just like starts weeping over Victor and telling him he won't let him die. And I was like, this is why Joe Morton is hired.
Dude, he's the perfect pick. I mean, not to typecast him, but goddamn, the guy in T2, come on.
Yeah.
Miles Bennett Dyson.
It's not like he can't act. He's obviously a great actor. It's not just because of the typecast. Like, So.
No, he's a fantastic actor, and I'm just like, this is why you have Joe Morton as Silas Stone. This is great. So, it also, I wanted to point out another difference is that in the Whedon cut, it just seems like Cyborg's just moping about the fact that his dad resurrected him by giving him, turning him into Cyborg. You made me a monster. Whereas in this one, it makes more sense because he blames his dad not just for the Cyborg thing, but mainly because he feels that if his dad was there, his mom wouldn't have died. Now it makes so much more sense.
Right.
As opposed to just like, how dare you save my life, Dad? I'm like, okay.
Right.
So it really makes, Snyder was not kidding when he said Cyborg is the heart of the story. He absolutely is the heart of the story. Ray Fisher knocks it out of the park. I'm happy for him, probably most of all, out of any of the Justice League main actors, because of the fact that this is really a fantastic showcase of what he could do compared to what was in the Whedon cut, where it was just a forgettable role.
Right.
To no fault of his own. So we got Snyder 19, Whedon 1.5, still at 1.5.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
Not really, Mr. Whedon, but okay. All right, next part is open floor because it's a very small difference. It's Barry talking to his dad, Henry Allen, played by Billy Crudup, who was recently replaced by Ron Livingston in the new Flash movie. Main difference here is that Whedon cut some lines from the Snyder Cut. Snyder Cut had the exposition of the fact that his dad is in prison for murdering his mom, and Barry doesn't believe that. That exposition is here in that scene, as opposed to the Whedon Cut, which cuts that and instead had Alfred tell Bruce on the plane. Small difference here. I feel like, okay, maybe it does make more sense to have Alfred tell Bruce and us learn that as opposed to 2 characters who already know each other or already know that information. But to me, it weirdly felt like there was more emotion to this scene, in this version of it, even though there's very little change between the 2 of them. So maybe that just has to do with the fact that we already have that carryover emotion between father and son with Cyborg into the scene. Maybe it has something to do with the fact we know Barry a little better or a little more, as opposed to him dueling on somebody's face in the Whedon cut. But differences are really too small to debate on it. I feel like this is just an automatic point. I mean, come on, we already know this is going to go to Snyder on this one. So 20, Whedon 1.5.
I honestly forgot that Billy Crudup was in the Whedon cut. I remember watching the Snyder cut, and I was like, "Oh, that's cool. He was Dr. Manhattan." Totally forgot he was even in the other movie. So I thought he was cut from the Whedon version. So yeah, I was excited to see him.
Yeah, he was. He was in the other version, just less, right?
Yeah, slightly less. I mean, there were still only 2 scenes with Barry visiting the prison, but they were slightly different. But we saw in both versions, Henry Allen tells him, like, hey, make your own future. You're living in the past, and you're like one of the best kids. And that pays off in the Snyder cut, which we had no idea about until 2021 in the dialogue where the Flash goes back in time. More on that when we cover that. But yeah, I would say that it just feels a lot more emotional when we get to that scene in the prison. And I felt that it was a tough sell after seeing, just because some of the best moments of the CW Flash show were between Grant Gustin and John Wesley Shipp as his dad. And maybe it doesn't quite reach those highs, but considering the fact that this is your first time meeting these versions of the characters, it works well enough for what it is. But I'd say a bigger difference is in the next scene where Bruce Wayne recruits Barry Allen. So here's Snyder versus Whedon. In both versions, Bruce recruits Barry by throwing a batarang at him, and it slows down, and we get to see Barry catch it in his super speed. We then see Bruce drive off at the end, and in the Snyder cut, it's a little bit extended where he drives onto the freeway, and he drives past a billboard that advertises a phone number for suicide prevention. This was digitally added. Yeah, this was digitally added for this cut, because this part of the scene actually leaked years ago in 2017. I remember seeing that maybe it was for a commercial or something, but this part leaked and there was no billboard back in 2017. So I think they deliberately added it for the HBO Max version of this.
For sure, yeah.
So that's cool. Whedon's version has pop music in the background, whereas Snyder's version has Junkie XL's score during the time. And the Snyder cut does not have a part that Whedon added, which I think is one of the biggest sins of this, which is he adds in a whole monologue. Let's put this in perspective. He decided, hey, we have to cut down all this stuff, but in terms of new stuff to add, we're going to have Ezra Miller show up again. Forget the fact his hair is not going to match continuity-wise, and do a whole rant about how he hates brunch.
What is it? I forgot about that. But he eats all the time, though.
Yeah, but he says he doesn't understand brunch because everybody's lining up to have lunch, and that he doesn't understand people and that type of stuff, and that was shot and added in, and also to pay off a joke later on, because in the mid-credits scene where he races Superman's like, you say that I win and you get to treat us to brunch, and then it was basically a lame joke. So anyway, Whedon's version is basically the same, but with this added monologue just smack in the middle. It's so obvious that it's different reshoots. Ezra Miller's hair is all different. The background looks like it's been green screened in. It's just ridiculous. So anyway, Snyder versus Whedon. I think I know where this is going to go. Zach.
Snyder. It's just, I remember thinking, I was like, okay, we're coming up on this scene, because this is one of the scenes that I found really cringeworthy in the Whedon cut. And I was like, that whole scene, even like with him talking to Bruce, I even thought, like, this is, the comedy just did not land for me. The first time I saw the movie, I was like, okay, let's see how it is. And I think even just the change in music made a difference to me.
That's what it is.
I was like, oh, it's like it's totally fine now. It doesn't bother me. And like, even I still didn't think like Bruce Wayne saying that his superpowers being rich was like hilarious, but I still didn't like cringe at it like I think I did the first time I watched this movie. So to me, it just made everything more palatable, and it worked better for me. So even those subtle changes, and I remember that brunch thing too, and I thought it was stupid. It made me not like the Flash. I was just like, oh, it's just like it's trying to force humor into it.
Zach's like, what's wrong with brunch?
You love brunch.
I don't know. I just he just was awkward, and not in like a funny way. It's like they were going out of their way to make him a comedic relief, but also, all right, he's going to be socially awkward, and we're just going to really push that. It wasn't gelling for me.
Yeah. Andrew?
Didn't gel for me either. Didn't like it. I forgot about the brunch thing entirely. Now, God, yeah, that was not good. Not necessary. I didn't notice the soundtrack change, but yeah, I could see Junkie XL being better. Who was the pop singer or whatever? Do you know?
I don't know. It
offhand?
was like it might have been some. It almost sounded like it was some foreign pop music or
Okay.
something. I didn't recognize the language, but I remember it's like blaring in the background in the
Okay.
Whedon cut for a bit.
Okay. And they got Rick and Morty in the background in both cuts, I believe, as well.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. But yeah, of course it's Snyder again. I mean, I think on both cuts he's like, I'm in. Like that's fun, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Injecting the humor in there in a really organic way. Yeah, and you know, like in these like recruitment montages or whatever with these like team action movies. A lot of times, they're hard to recruit, and they all are in this movie except for him. And I like that contrast. I like that he's just like, I'm in. Don't even worry about it.
Yeah.
You need me
Because
to
he's
push
such a
people?
fanboy. Yeah.
Yeah, you need me to push people fast. I'm your man. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that worked for me. Ezra Miller's pretty good Flash overall, I think. I mean, I haven't heard many people complain about him. I like him adding I'm jumping ahead, but I like the yoga thing he does. I like that he talks about being a good Jewish boy. Like
Yeah.
all these like little stamps he puts on the character, I think are cool. They weren't that kind of thing probably wasn't there before, but I don't know. Everybody that plays the character gets to put their stamp on it, So
Yeah.
I think
yeah.
that's cool. And I mean, Flash grabbing a batarang. What's
Yeah,
wrong
I
with
mean,
that?
he's a fanboy.
That's cool.
Yeah, he's a fan of the other superheroes, and so I like that aspect. He's a fan of Batman, obviously, because he already knows based off the battering alone what it is, and he wants to keep it. And then later on, he talks about how like Superman was his hero and how he wishes he was there, like that type of stuff. It's it really cements like, hey, he's kind of one of us in a way.
Right.
Yeah. So honestly, I think like the brunch stuff, I was like, thank God it's over. So I was definitely expecting that was going to be gone. But what I also think was interesting, and this is based off of what Zach had said, is that the version in this movie doesn't feel as much like, hey, we're trying to make things funny and jokey. Like the Whedon cut very much feels like, hey, like this is a Joss Whedon, trying to do another Avengers type of thing. We're going to try to force in as many jokes as we can. And this one just kind of feels like Barry is making these jokes because he's nervous, because he doesn't know who this guy is.
Right.
That type of thing. And so it feels more of a character thing as opposed to just like, haha, we're funny now. Marvel's known for humor, but we can do it too. This one feels like, well, no, this is just that character of it.
It's organic.
Yeah, it feels more organic.
Yeah.
So we're going to go into the break, but before we go into the break, we are at Snyder 21, Whedon 1.5. So catch you after the break.
We're the Spirit Hunters, and we're a show that treats Hunter x Hunter and Yu Yu Hakusho's author as the center of the universe. Some weeks we do linguistic analysis.
So the Chinese meaning of this character is to smelt or refine, but so the changed meaning in Japanese it means to temper.
Other times we get absolutely smashed.
So we take one shot every time. Yusuke uses the ray gun.
1 hour later.
This is the least coherent episode.
Sarah, you
I think your apartment is haunted.
I think you
You can find out more about the Spirit Hunters right here on the Greenlit Podcast Network.
I said a Darkseid. His name is a Darkseid. Say it with me.
Darkseid.
Yes, he's coming. The Lord is coming. The Dark Lord is coming. His name is a Darkseid. I'm bringing the souls to you. I'm bringing your souls to him. Say it with me now, everybody. I said a Darkseid.
A Darkseid.
Lord have mercy, look who is here now, here today. Lord Darkseid here.
Glorious Godfrey, we need to talk.
Oh, Darkseid, yes. I've been here preaching to the masses the glorious name that is yours.
I'm flattered by that, Godfrey, but it seems a little much.
What would be a little too much about this form? This is the language that they speak, Master.
When I sent you here for Earth, Godfrey, I did not expect you to be, I don't know, on television so much. I was hoping you would just get me souls. Instead, you've been on TV for the past 48 hours. It seems it's a little aggressive.
Well, I've been having fun in the colonies, and I just find it so bombastic and fun, my lord.
Well, by your count, how many souls have you collected for Apocalypse?
Oh, at this rate, probably 400,000, my liege. Perhaps even more. They love this character on TV and the Zoom and the TikTok and whatnot. I've got my entire social media shit working really well, my lord.
Well, that's very impressive. I heard TikTok is very popular these days.
Yes, it is, indeed.
Very impressive numbers, Godfrey. Perhaps this will actually work. I was not expecting so many people to fall for something so obvious.
You would be surprised, my lord. There's a phrase here on this planet, when in Rome, do as the Romans. And I am merely doing as such. I'm sure you understand. In all of your excellence.
Well then, there's not much I can complain about. It seems like obvious brainwashing to me, but to them, if they are eating it up, then continue doing what you're doing. Give me the souls for Apocalypse.
I mean, at this rate, my lord, you wouldn't even need the anti-life equation.
I wouldn't?
We've already bent them to our will as much as possible already, I believe. But, I don't know, maybe a little extra zhuzh with the anti-life equation will send them over even further.
I've spent my whole life trying to find the anti-life equation. If without the anti-life equation, I don't know what to do with my life.
I leave that to you and your excellence to figure out.
It would cut down on a lot of work just to have them as they are right now, just bending to my will without need for the equation. Seems like it'd be a lot easier.
Indeed, my lord.
Perhaps I should just make some appearances like now, every now and then. So that they keep believing.
My lord, I know this is strange, but it's weird. The less you show up, the more they require belief. I do enjoy being in your presence. Do not take this the wrong way.
This seems too good to be true, Godfrey. You're saying that I need to not do anything just for them to believe in me?
I mean, maybe have people draw pictures about you, but that's really about it.
Well, then I'll just go back to Apocalypse and sit.
Rule by Zoom. Or something.
I'll call up DeSaad to set up my Zoom account.
My lord, you have rang.
DeSaad, set up my Zoom account. It is time that I work remotely from Apocalypse.
This is excellent news, my master, but I am not a fucking IT department.
DeSaad, you speak that way to me again, and you will be at the other end of the Omega Beams. Set me up the Zoom account and give me one of those virtual backgrounds, preferably the ones with the cute kitties.
Anime kitties, my lord!
Sure, that's your thing.
Well, I guess I should get back to these cretins.
Thank you very much, Godfrey.
Yes, it is always a pleasure, Darkseid. I always want to be on your good side. Wait, if you have one, that is, my lord. I'm confused on that one, but anyway, I will return to my own devices.
Keep doing what you're doing. This was a lot easier than I thought.
Praise the Darkseid.
All right, everybody, if you like that sketch right there, we have that, plus news, plus we're bringing back some opinion pieces and review type stuff and all kinds of stuff in our $5 tier on Patreon. So just go to patreon.com/superherostuffpod, and if you become part of the $5 tier, you can see these new bonus episodes. Basically, consider it Superhouse DLC.
Hey, this is Cole Vallis, Tommy Elliot, and Hush from the Fox TV show Gotham, and you're listening to Superhouse. Everything you need to know, Batman.
And we're back from the break, and we left off at Snyder 21, Whedon 1.5. Will Whedon get even so much as 0.25 of a point? We will find out. But anyway, the next scene is with Diana and Alfred in the Wayne hangar. So in both versions of the scene, Alfred and Diana are talking, and then Cyborg contacts Diana in order to meet up. There's some vast differences, however. In the Snyder version, we have a whole scene of Alfred and Diana bonding over, not necessarily bonding, but Alfred correcting her on making tea. And I think this is way funnier than anything in the Flash scene with Bruce and Barry. And then there's an introduction that Alfred's working on Batman's new gauntlets, which are somewhat inspired by Wonder Woman and the fact that they can deflect a lot of the energy blasts. So that's cool. Diana obviously takes notice of the fact that it's been inspired by her, and then she gets contacted by Cyborg to meet up. Whedon reshoots all of this. He cuts the tea. He cuts the gauntlets thing entirely, which is dumb because that was sweet. And then Cyborg in this version brings up that he knows who both Batman and Wonder Woman are because he was spying on them at the lake at Wayne Manor. and Diana indicates that she knows that Cyborg was spying on her earlier. And Alfred, in both versions, says the line, "Looks like you have a date, Miss Prince." But Whedon added some ADR where he says, "Looks like you have a date, Miss Prince. About time somebody here did," in reference to Bruce. So continually making it seem like Jeremy Irons as Alfred is always trying to hook a brother up for Bruce Wayne. So those are the main differences between the
grandchildren.
Mr. Wayne. Yes. Should do a sketch on that.
Yeah.
Anyways, thoughts on especially the new stuff that we weren't expecting to see in the Snyder Cut, starting with Zach.
Yeah, I love the tea thing. I thought that was great. It was very Alfred, and you get to see some interaction with him and Diana, which I think is great. Again, there's not a lot that I remember from the Whedon cut, and I'm sure that was very unmemorable. So yeah, I thought.
Oh, it was.
Yeah, I thought it was. The additions were great. So, and some, like you said, some more organic humor rather than something that's forced.
Yeah. Andrew?
Yeah, I agree. The tea, him fussing over tea is one of the funniest parts of the movie for me, and one of the most.
Don't scold the tea.
Yeah. That's great. I could definitely see those two talking about that. It's probably happened in the comic. It must have. At some point.
It has, but in general, how often do you get to see Alfred and Wonder Woman chatting?
That's the thing. That's why it's so good. And then her getting her little hit in about the gauntlets. Like she says, "Oh, you can have a lasso too. Don't worry, it can be black."
Yeah.
Yes.
Great lines. Don't know why it's cut, because you would think Whedon would, he's the light guy. He's the guy that wants the humor. Why we get these two things cut? Like I could see. Not that I agree with it, but I can see him cutting the other darker shit or whatever, because he's just not as dark as Snyder's style is. So, but for him to cut this kind of thing, I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense.
It could just be his justification may have been time, because you've got added time with that. But then it's just like you had to, if you don't have the gauntlets thing, then you have to cut that. So I don't know. It's weird. It's stuff that, like, I was not struck by how cool it was to see Wonder Woman and Alfred interacting in the Whedon cut. I was, however, struck by that in this version, where I'm just like, oh, this is awesome. It's like it didn't occur to me in the Whedon cut because it was so unmemorable. It was literally just Alfred serving her tea in like one scene, and that was it.
Does it say what kind? Is it Earl Grey or?
It doesn't say.
They don't say.
I would say. I mean, we can assume it's Earl Grey based off of our Batman lifestyle episode.
It's one of the most common ones in England, right? That and Darjeeling, I believe. Let us know in the comments.
Yes. I wanted to bring up one thing for continuity here. First off, obviously, I agree with you guys on the superiority of the Snyder version of this. But if you notice, Victor in this version, Diana's looking over the video footage. And when Victor was created to be Cyborg, he's like lying. He's not even lying. He's like propped up on top of that. I don't know. That not necessarily. It's not a table. It's like a board, really. He's propped up there when the mother box comes on and he turns into Cyborg. In the Whedon cut, this was completely reshot. Where Victor has more of a body. He has more of a torso. He only has like a metal arm, and he has black pants. Now, why is this? It could be that the Batman vs. Superman version was seen as more gruesome. However, according to Ray Fisher, there was something a lot more fucked up going on behind why they shot this.
Oh, man.
He said Jeff Johns and other execs were, quote, forcing a scene to be reshot so they could highlight the existence of Cyborg's penis.
Is that really true? That's what he said, huh? That is what he
said. He has another quote here saying, quote, among many other things I had to spend an inordinate amount of time explaining to Jeff why he was not the authority on how the existence of Cyborg's genitals would be perceived by the black community. He strongly disagreed. Now, if you look at Doom Patrol, which is executive produced by Jeff Johns, where Cyborg is played by Joyvan Wade, there is a scene where Cyborg is talking to women who, at one point, keep pestering him, quote, show me your metal parts. And then the character does have sex in the second season, which almost proves that he does have at least something working down there. So I don't really know where this obsession with whether or not Cyborg can get laid is a thing of Jeff Johns, but apparently it is, and according to Ray Fisher. Because, like, if you're going to do reshoots, why would you reshoot stuff that you can obviously just reuse? You already have that footage from Batman vs. Superman. They deliberately reshot this, and according to Ray Fisher, this is the reason. Any thoughts? Or are you guys just too flabbergasted by this?
That is so weird. I'm thinking about how does he have sex, but I guess if he can just form like these robot arms out of his back, then I guess the suit can form other things. But I didn't even realize that was I didn't realize that was reshot. Like I said, I don't remember that part either. All I remember thinking was how gruesome it was to see him, and he was like barely like a torso under the rib cage. I was like, how is he even alive right now? I know this is a superhero movie, but that it made it seem like he absolutely needed this to survive and go on, rather than being like you said, like missing an arm. Like that is very interesting. So I'm not surprised if it is true about why Jeff Johns wanted that scene reshot. It is just so weird and unnecessary for the character.
Yeah. Andrew, any thoughts on this, or are you still reeling from this?
It is quite a thing to hear about. The one thing is, like, they are old, rich white guys, both of them, but it's just like, they're not that old. I mean, they are really rich. Like, why have this whole, make this thing, I don't know, like, why make this a thing, first of all, and, like, I just feel like they should be young enough, in Hollywood enough, to know what is good and what is bad as far as this kind of thing is concerned. And, just way too much focus on a cyborg's genitalia. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's just, it's but, like, did Jeff Johns explicitly and what's his name, and Whedon say something to Ray Fisher out loud? Like, oh yeah, we want to add your dick in this. Like, how does, like, I agree with Ray Fisher, I understand, but, like, how does Ray Fisher come around this information? You know what I'm saying?
He said, quote, explaining to Jeff why he was not the authority on how the existence of Cyborg's genitals would be perceived by the black community. He strongly disagreed. So I'm assuming
they had this conversation.
I'm assuming this was an actual conversation, not just Ray Fisher jumping to conclusions based off of reshooting the scene. Because it just seems like, when you first see it, right? It just seems like, they reshot it just so that it'd be more family friendly. But Ray Fisher's adding that there's another layer to this, on this, that is just kind of mind blowing.
So it's just this is hard to process. I don't know. You just think that, like, these Hollywood types, they should have these meetings, these sensitivity meetings, whatever it is, just to go over this kind of thing if they don't know. But I don't know. I just find it really strange. Like, they scheduled, like, probably not $1 million for that day, but it might have been over $1 million with the VFX thrown in, just for them to have Cyborg to have a dick to appease the black community, because Jeff Johns and Joss Whedon know a lot about the black community. Is that what they're saying? They know more than Ray Fisher?
That's according to Ray Fisher. I mean, I still think, even if they didn't do that, I think it's still inane for producers to be like, hey, we got to cut down this movie. We're also going to reshoot stuff entirely and spend money on stuff like that, as opposed to, like, any scene that might condense stuff. Like, as much as the Whedon version of Cyborg's introduction with him and Silas Stone, as much as that is, like, pales in comparison emotionally, I kind of get why they did it, because they needed to condense information.
Obviously,
this doesn't condense information.
Sorry,
this doesn't condense information at all. You literally could have just used pre-shot footage, shot multiple times for Batman vs. Superman and for Zack Snyder's Justice League, and you could have just used that. Instead, you spent all this money just for this one scene. Ridiculous.
Jeff Johns and Whedon seem to literally think that the black community is going to view a guy getting his dick blown off differently than everybody else. I feel like that's going to be one common thread throughout all cultures, is a guy getting his dick blown off is going to be like about the same reaction. You know what I mean? Some things are different. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, if you're a person of color especially, but I kind of feel like I don't know. What do you guys think? I feel like it's going to be perceived basically the same way. I don't know why they give this special attention to this thing.
It feels like the wrong concern.
It's the
I agree.
Yes, exactly.
It's the wrong concern.
In a word, in 2 words, yes, wrong concern. Yes, succinctly put, Benatavius.
All right, so Snyder 22, Whedon 1.5.
We talked about Cyborg's dick way more than I was expecting.
I was saving this information. I deliberately did not put this in the why releasing the Snyder Cut was True Justice episode because I knew this was relevant for this specific scene as opposed to the other one, which is more about his general experience. Okay, so Diana goes to meet Victor, and here's what's weird that I noticed in watching the Whedon version and the Snyder version back to back. Gal Gadot does not reshoot her scene where she meets Victor Stone. However, Ray Fisher shoots his side of the scene completely different, into a different scene. So Gal Gadot is originally doing lines of Ray Fisher in the Snyder version, and then Whedon reshoots Ray Fisher's entire half so that Gal Gadot is reacting and talking to his version, even though that's not what she was on set doing. So the differences in the two cyborgs. In Snyder's version, Cyborg is pretty much in his main form. He's not wearing a hoodie. He flies in and he carries the mother box with him. He's angrier here. This is where he says the line, "fuck the world," and how he doesn't need anyone, and Diana tries to get through to him. In the Whedon version, Cyborg is a lot more mellow. He walks in. He doesn't fly in. He doesn't have the mother box with him. He's wearing a hoodie, which is probably because they didn't want to spend the money on all the extra stuff, so this just saves a lot of the money by just having him with the mask thing. And he's willing to help her with the mother boxes, and that's it. And she tries to recruit him, and he says no, and he flies off, and they seem a little friendlier here. So it seems like the scene was deliberately redone just to make Cyborg a little less angry. That's what I seem to have gotten when comparing the two. They feel about the same in terms of the purpose for the story, but emotional impact just as on Snyder's side, given what we've seen before. So anyway, your guys' thoughts on this, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it has more emotional impact, and he is the character, I think, that has the biggest arc throughout the whole movie. So I think it's important to have that dynamic between how easy it was to recruit Flash with Bruce, and even with Diana, who we would feel like is better at recruiting people, even from Alfred's criticism of Bruce's techniques and his lifestyle choices. So yeah, I thought it was fine, and of course it takes away all of that impact in the Whedon cut when it's just so blah. Yeah, there's not a whole lot to it.
Andrew?
I mean, obviously Snyder, but it's so this is where they try to take out the angry black man, basically.
Yeah. Yep.
This is
basically
again
because they reshot all of this as opposed to just cutting down the scene.
Right. Yeah. It's we talked about this maybe on the Patreon or something, right? Like, or
we talked about in why releasing the Snyder Cut was True Justice.
Oh, we talked about it in that one. Yeah, that's right. It's just kind of the same thing. It's just like why are they making these changes? Why are they like this non-woke in their position? If you're a fucking Hollywood producer in the Hollywood system in LA, in California, you know, for years and years and years, you really should be on your, you know, up and up on these issues. And I find it wild that they're, you know, seemingly this bad. Yeah, the changes are pretty much ridiculous. I think.
Yeah, I think the only line I kind of like from the Whedon version is when Diana calls them gifts in terms of his powers, and he's just like, if these are gifts, why am I paying for them? Which is like, I think Whedon trying to capture the emotion of the other stuff, but in just one line. I'm just like, okay, that was kind of a cool line, but it's not enough. I'm not going to give him the point for that. But it definitely shows a big difference, and shows again just how inane these reshoots were. Where just like, you already had the scene. The scene was there. Maybe if you wanted to get the PG-13 and you felt like the fuck was too much, then you just cut the line where he says "fuck the world." You know, like have that, or ADR something else, and have the shot on Gal's face. If you don't have, if it doesn't sync up, like you don't have to go through. They literally reshot entire half of a scene just so that Cyborg would continue to be less interesting.
They added his dick in there too, though.
Yes. So points for that, obviously.
You can't see it, but it's there.
As long as people know that it is, then Cyborg's good.
The black community is gonna love this. So
he just needs a dick and booyah, and then we're good for this version of Cyborg. Fuck any other character aspects. Emotion. What is that? Character development. What?
Oh shit, man.
So yeah, obviously Snyder 23, Whedon 1.5 is just so much
man.
Again, anything Cyborg just automatically should go to Snyder on this. Next few instances we're gonna
do you
talk
think
about
that do you think that he felt like he was in Get Out when he had to say the booyah line?
Probably. Yeah.
Probably not a good day, man. He's under contract, he's got to say it, but it's just like, oh dude,
that's why he's got the most unenthusiastic booyah ever in the movie.
It is very. I remember that.
He's just like booyah.
Yeah, it's a terrible booyah. He does not want to say it, man.
All right, the next few instances are small changes. So open floor, throw out any thoughts or reactions because they're very small scenes. We got Victor hiding the mother box in his own grave, which is pretty dark but pretty cool. Then we have the Star Labs scene
2 feet deep.
Sets up. Yeah, 2 feet deep.
Again.
Hey, to be fair, they didn't find it.
That's true.
In this version. Let's see. Star Labs, we see Ryan Choi set up the electron laser. This is where he says one of the best lines in the movie, where he's like, "You're looking at the hottest thing on Earth." Exact words I said to my prom date. She dumped me in. So automatically that makes us love Ryan Choi.
Yeah.
Silas Stone goes home and gets abducted, which is pretty much the same in both versions. However, in the Snyder cut, he comes home to find that the tape has been broken, which we saw earlier. This is obviously cut in the Whedon cut because there was no tape. And then it's clear, I think, in both versions, he sees that Victor's ransacked the place and taken the mother box. However, in the Snyder version, we know that he's gone to do it because he went to see Diana and then buried the mother box. In the Whedon cut, we never really see where Victor hides it. And so when he comes back and he's like, "Oh, Victor," and he sees all the stuff on the floor, it just seems like Victor threw a temper tantrum before he went to see Diana. It just makes him look really immature and like a baby. Yeah, so at that point, I'll give Snyder an automatic point, I think. I don't think we need to discuss further on that. So that's Snyder 24, Whedon 1.5. And then we get Jim Gordon being introduced. Now, this is cool.
Right.
Jim Gordon is in both versions of the Snyder cut and the Whedon cut. However, the Snyder cut is longer. The cop he's talking to is addressed by name as Crispus, as in Crispus Allen from the GCPD, who's supposed to be in the Whedon cut, but I don't think he's ever addressed as Crispus in that version. Whedon adds a bit. It could be that Whedon added this bit, or Snyder had it shot and then didn't include it in his cut. But Crispus Allen says something about like the world's gone crazy. Maybe he did too when it comes to Batman being suspected of all the parademon crimes of kidnapping people. Also, what's weird is that the drawing of the parademons looks different in both cuts. They both look like they were drawn by a child. Again, I don't know why.
Not a police sketch artist.
Yeah.
No Zachary Jackson Brown, I'll tell you that one right now.
A highly detailed version of concept art put up there.
We've had some budget cuts, says Gordon, our sketch artist.
Cut to your boomerangs on Instagram. Sketch it out.
So, I think more Gordon is always a good thing, especially since J.K. Simmons is good casting. He just wasn't really given much to do in any of these versions. He's given more to do in the Snyder cut, but just barely any screen time.
He did. Remember this brought up some controversy during the filming. He was like, "I'm working out a lot." Oh, this is for BVS. I can't remember.
I mean, he wasn't in BVS, but it was around the time.
Justice League.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. It was just like, you're Gordon, right? You're working out a lot. All right, I guess everybody works. Everybody works out in Snyder's movies.
You can't see it through the trench coat and the button-up shirt. He's ripped.
I mean, whatever, dude. Whatever.
I did all this workout for nothing. But no, I mean, it sounded like he was doing that for himself rather than for specifically the Zack Snyder movie. It just happened that the timing worked out. I would give Snyder another point just to give Gordon. You know, there was more of Gordon in this. There's a part where he gets his messages and he throws them in the trash, and he talks about how his mom was right about how he should not have been a cop, that type of stuff. So he kind of got you given the fact that there's barely any. There's like one scene between him and Affleck in this, 2 scenes in the Whedon cut between Simmons and Affleck, but you kind of already feel some of the history there. I just wish that there was more. So, you know, if they released the Batfleck version, if they did the Batfleck movie, then maybe we could get to see that someday. But anyway,
the one with Deathstroke.
Yeah,
right.
let's see. We got an additional scene where Silas Stone is taken by the parademons over to where the other people are kept. So that's pretty much that's new, but you can see, okay, maybe they just cut that for time for the Whedon version.
Right.
And then we do have Barry meeting Diana when Bruce arrives at the airport with his car and Barry meets Diana in both versions. She's like, "Hi, Barry, I'm Diana." I'm Diana. And then he repeats the same back to her, and he's like, "That's not right." So that's cool. However, there's one big difference, and I noted this in here, is that in the Whedon version, when Bruce and Barry are descending down, we get a big wide screen, like basically wide angle shot where it's Wonder Woman's backside with her ass in tight leather pants. Snyder deliberately has the same shot zoomed in on Bruce Wayne when he comes down. There is no shot of Diana's ass in this. So I think Snyder knew that shot was probably done for the studio, or it was reshot by Whedon. I think that was probably done. Maybe it could have been by the request of the studio or something, because otherwise Whedon would have had to done the setup just for that. But it is interesting to note that there's a big difference there in the two shots. So point goes to Snyder on that one. I don't think we have to debate about that. 26 to Whedon's 1.5. Anyway, we have a final Snyder versus Whedon thing, which is Steppenwolf taking the mother box from Atlantis. This will be our final Snyder versus Whedon thing before we end the episode. People keep saying online that Amber Heard suddenly has a British accent in the Snyder cut. However, she did have a kind of a British accent in the Whedon cut because she wasn't part of the Whedon reshoots. They used the same footage. Now, when I rewatched it, I think her accent is a little bit more is stronger in the Snyder version. It's a little more blatant, but it's still there in the Whedon version. So I think it's a little weird that people are just like, she suddenly has a British accent. But I'm like, I get that you probably forgot that because you forgot that she was even in the Whedon version to begin with because it was that forgettable. But that was an interesting thing that has come up where people have brought up those differences when I don't think it's really that different. Like Snyder had shot it with her with the British accent, and James Wan decided that she would sound American with her own voice, probably for the best. But Snyder's version also, he has a very different take on Atlantis. Vocal looked different, as we noted in part 2. But Snyder's version makes it clear that the Atlanteans kind of speak like dolphins underwater with the trilling and everything. And they create the bubbles in order to speak in English. This was obviously retconned by James Wan. The fight here with Steppenwolf is brutal. At one point, Steppenwolf grabs Mera by the throat. And it seems like she's trying to do some sort of bloodbending thing. If you guys have seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, it seems like she does that to him.
I kind of got that too, but she doesn't like fully pull it off, right?
Yeah, because he like throws her away. And then right when Steppenwolf's about to kill her with the axe, Aquaman comes in and saves her life, which was kind of a cool way for them to meet. Whedon, of course, cut a lot of this stuff. So he cuts Mera talking to the Atlantean soldier, cuts the moment where she bloodbends on Steppenwolf, cuts the part where Arthur saves Mera. Steppenwolf is less brutal. The Whedon cut even uses... There's that shot earlier in the Snyder cut where Aquaman swims up to the body of the statue of the Atlantean king. Whedon does the same shot. He uses the same shot, but replaces the Atlantean king with like one of the bodies of the guards to show that, hey, this is how Arthur discovers everything. And then the biggest thing I think that's added is that at the end when Mera says like, hey, it's your turn to help get the mother box back because this would have been your mom's job. In the Whedon cut, Aquaman says, then I'm going to need something from you, which implies that he gets his armor and trident from her since he's been rejecting that the whole movie. So, anyway, Snyder versus Whedon on this Atlantis sequence. Any thoughts on this, Zach?
It was so much better. I feel like in the Whedon cut, it almost seemed like he won or he got the mother box very easily. And actually seeing them put up a little bit more of a fight and Mera using like her abilities to suck the water out of him was really, really cool. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I didn't know she could do that. And him didn't he cut that one guy in half? One of the Atlanteans, I swear. It was very brutal. So again, that just shows how much more of a threat Steppenwolf is, and I thought that was really cool. So no, I don't miss anything from the Whedon cut in that respect.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Andrew.
Yeah, you say it looked like he got it more easily in the Whedon cut, right? Yeah, it was again, the action sequence in this is a lot more tense and better because that's definitely when Snyder shines, especially is with action. So yeah, I mean, definitely Snyder again. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it was good. I just keep thinking about him skewering him in the later scene.
Yeah. You mean Darkseid skewering him?
No.
Or you mean
Aquaman?
You mean him Aquaman skewering Steppenwolf?
Yes,
Sorry.
exactly. Yeah. So that was obviously a little bit later. I guess he might have tried that in that scene. I can't remember exactly, but he didn't. He couldn't pull it off. Obviously, at that.
He found it easier out of water than in water, I guess.
Right. But yeah, Steppenwolf just feels more badass and more of like a presence, you know, like he's definitely like fucking shit up, just in general. I think more than
he's a lot more of a threat here.
Yeah, a lot more of a threat and a lot more sympathetic. Well, a little more sympathetic
at the same time. Yeah, like he's weirdly both sympathetic and more threatening at the same time in this, as opposed to not being that sympathetic or threatening at all in the Whedon cut.
Dude, I forgot about his look. I saw pictures of his look in the Whedon cut.
Yeah.
Dude, that's also so bad looking back. Like Whedon's Steppenwolf is Snyder's Steppenwolf is so much better.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he just looks like a generic mess. He looks like one of Davy Jones's crew in Pirates of the Caribbean 2. Yeah. It's something about him. He looks just so much like a little background character, you know. Ugh. Yeah. Potato face.
Yeah. I mean, he's no DeSaad, but he's cool though.
DeSaad.
I like DeSaad.
I think, this is obviously an improvement. I mean, this is at this point we're a broken record. Obviously, Snyder 27, Whedon 1.5.
You have to get used to that in this series, man. If you want to hear us say shit more against Snyder, see the one Snyder versus the critics in the past. So you can see, you know, we're probably a lot, you know, in general throughout the entire podcast more even-handed than we are in this particular series.
We saw an article. I mean, I saw an article on Comic Book Resources saying it was a plot hole in how Arthur got the armor, and Whedon filled that in. But I feel like this is so nitpicky because, sure, Whedon has the line where he's like, "I'm going to need something from you," which explains that he gets the armor and the trident from Mera. However, when Aquaman sees Volko in the Snyder cut, Volko has the trident and the armor. You can just assume that Aquaman, after talking to Mera, just went to Volko and got that stuff. Like, you don't really need a lot to explain that. If Batman randomly shows up with an Atlantean armor and a trident, then yes, you should explain that. But considering that's not what happened, it's pretty obvious how he got to Volko on that. So I don't agree with that at all. Yeah. I'm all of you now. He's got the lasso, the trident.
And in Justice League War, they're like, "Hey, Batman, what are you good at?" And then he's like, "Hey, what the fuck?" Green Lantern asked that because Batman's already stolen the ring.
Yes. Yeah.
That shit was great, actually.
Yes. All right. Final stuff is that Snyder and Whedon both have a scene of Cyborg finding the aftermath of his dad's kidnapping. And this is what's kind of amazing, is that Whedon reshoots this specifically to have Cyborg in a hoodie.
Is that really it? That's really it.
That's the only difference between the two. I don't know if it was CG added, but I'm just like, why did you need to add the hoodie into that, or even either reshoot it or pay the money to do CG? Because it's just like, okay, he wore the hoodie. You know, if you're going to do the Whedon cut where he wears the hoodie where he sees Diana, you can always say he went back home when he took the hoodie off. You don't need to you don't need the hoodie there for continuity. But they deliberately have him still wear the hoodie when he finds his dad's glasses and he looks out the window and sees the bat signal. It's stupid.
Oh man, dude. Oh, go ahead, Zach. Sorry.
No, I just think, you know, kind of like your theory that it was just in an effort to make things lamer, or I don't know, just make Cyborg less cool.
Maybe.
It's not like they didn't save. It's not like that saved them money if the scene already existed, and the effects work was already done. So,
especially if they had to add a hoodie to it. Like,
right.
If that hoodie is CG in the reshoots, that is better CG than what they did to Cavill's mustache in that movie. Like, props to those people if they did that. But it's ridiculous that they even reshot that part. And then the part 3 ends with Steppenwolf feeding the second mother box, allowing him to create that bubble around the radioactive town, and talking to DeSaad, who tells him to torture the humans and find out what they know so he can find the third mother box. And so that is the end of part 3. Beloved mother, beloved son. Snyder 27, Whedon 1.5. Any closing thoughts before we wrap things up?
Nope. Still good. Still like the Snyder version best.
No changes.
Yeah, Basically the same. Way better. And I guess that's it for now. Yeah, I don't know.
Yep. All right. I agree. That is superhero stuff you should know. Okay, so we have a few fan comments on here. One of them is from Dustin Gibbons, who has a corrections department for us on the What's the Best Justice League origin. Dustin said, quote, pre-crisis, the Justice League had a satellite, though. The Watchtower in the comics was actually on the moon and not a satellite in the comics. So that's a good correction. Thank you, Dustin, on that. What I was looking for was when the formerly named Watchtower existed, which was in the 90s. But yes, the Justice League did have a satellite pre-crisis that was just kind of called the Justice League Satellite, I think, and wasn't formally called the Watchtower. So the DCAU is kind of combining them where the Watchtower is the name of the satellite from the pre-crisis comic.
I always thought that when I first heard the Watchtower, I thought it connected to Watchmen, and who watches the Watchmen? Like, who watches the Justice League, the most powerful people? You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't know. I know that they were separate before Rebirth and all that, but it's still both DC and it has Watch in the name. I don't know. I was trying to connect everything in my head.
Yes. Okay, so thank you, Dustin, for that. Next is from TJL, who commented on why releasing the Snyder Cut was true justice. TJL said, quote, great job between Ben's informative commentary and Andrew's welcoming voice / demeanor. Hey, Andrew, you got a fan here. This is a great upload. Great job. Thank you, TJ.
Best comment so far. No offense to the other comments.
There's some bias there, but yes, one of the best ones.
I don't see any bias. It just seems like truth to me.
Very fair and
objective
very
truth.
Fair and balanced. I do want to get to this comment from Ricky St. Quentin. I've talked about this before with you, Andrew, from the why releasing the Snyder Cut was true justice comment. Ricky says, quote, I disagree about the Snyder Cut getting released. I've seen and received the most appalling online bullying and harassment from Snyder fans. Now, I should point out that not all Snyder fans engage in bullying and harassment, but it's the ones who do who give the Snyder DC films a bad name. It's because of the online bullying and harassment towards fans who aren't a fan of the Snyder DC films and harassment towards WB and their employees that have made WB not want any more DC films from Snyder. The appalling tweets Ann Sarnoff received last week prove that. It's frustrating because I'm a fan of Geoff Johns, and I've been bullied and harassed over that as well. I'm glad the good Snyder fans enjoyed the Snyder Cut, but at the end of the day, the cut being released has rewarded bullying and harassment. This is the reason why I cannot and will not ever watch the Snyder Cut. Okay, so first off, Rick, I'm very sorry about your experiences with that. Obviously, we condone any form of online bullying or harassment, no matter which side you're on when it comes to this, especially given the fact that a lot of what you said here in terms of like the people who do engage in bullying and harassment giving Snyder and the DC films a bad name. I absolutely agree with you. That's also partially why we didn't really associate ourselves with a lot of that in the beginning. It wasn't really until we got deep into the movie and started appreciating parts of them that we started seeing, okay, we can be both critical and enjoy Snyder at the same time. I think there's too much of a black and white approach where people see, as you've experienced, that if you are vocal about, not liking his movies, that people will attack you. I think there's different levels. Like if you're somebody who has a toxic criticism of Snyder, just like the people who were talking about how they think Snyder's responsible for the death of his daughter, then sure, I can see people jumping on you. But if you just don't like the movie, like you should not be attacked for that, and I agree with that. So from my standpoint, I'm sorry that happened for you. I think anybody who was involved with that should apologize for that. I know that's not going to change anything, but I also would say that when it comes to our stance on why we feel like it was true justice for it, we aren't speaking for the toxic fans, but more so for Zack Snyder and his family, for Ray Fisher, for everybody who was involved in the original release, for C. Amanda Maud, who played the waitress, for all the people who worked hard on the original cut of the movie who ended up getting cut or marginalized or abused themselves, because there's a whole cycle of abuse involved with this movie. So again, sorry that you had to go through that. Hopefully we have other episodes that you're enjoying or will enjoy, and if not, then whatever. But thanks for leaving a comment. Andrew, do you have anything else on that?
I mean, you pretty much said it. I'm a little bit less aware of the toxic Snyder stuff online than I think you are, Ben. I feel like you're monitoring that on Twitter maybe a bit more than
I'm monitoring through the back computer.
You're monitoring the movements, their movements online.
Yes.
I was aware that they review bombed Godzilla vs. Kong or whatever.
Yeah, which is dumb.
Which is like, dude, okay. I mean, I don't think anybody was personally hurt from that, but just like, why are you doing that, dude? I guess I'm aware that
gives them a bad name.
Yeah, right. I'm aware there's toxic fans out there. I just didn't know it was to this extent. I'm sorry you had that experience. For me, I'm just glad this movie got out there, especially after Snyder going through what he did personally, and for Ray Fisher and everybody else, but mainly those two guys, as we've come to know through the behind the scenes, through the knowledge of what happened behind the scenes. And I don't know. I mean, I'd like to think this doesn't embolden anybody to bully people more. I just want to.
If
see
it does,
a comic book
it's
movie,
for.
you know?
Yeah, if it does, I mean, I personally like to think it's a very small section of a group of people who originally would have banded together for what they felt was justice for Zack Snyder and his family and Ray Fisher and all that. But there's always going to be some subsection that goes too far with that, who think that because of the fact that they feel that they're emboldened by, like, hey, it's a good cause because of suicide prevention and what happened to Zack Snyder, that they go too much on the offense. They do that type of stuff. Not saying that that's an excuse. It's inexcusable that they would turn to that. I'm just saying that I understand where that comes from, but I don't agree with it. So we did have a tweet earlier this week saying we support Restore the Snyderverse and continuing Snyder's plans for DC movies, but we do not support spamming the hashtag on unrelated posts, because some people were putting that on Stop Asian Hate posts from Warner Media. Obviously, stop doing that shit. Wanting to cancel unrelated DC films, spamming or review bombing Godzilla vs. Kong or James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. Again, stop doing that. We don't support that. And attacking anyone with different opinions on Snyder's films. Again, like, we have not been, we haven't loved every single Snyder decision, as you guys have seen in the Batman vs. Superman and Man of Steel Snyder versus Critic stuff. We try to keep very level-headed on this. And I don't support attacking anybody who likes Snyder movies, and I don't support attacking anyone who dislikes Snyder movies. I don't see why it has to even resort to that at all. But unfortunately, it does.
Yeah, it's surprising just how toxic some of that stuff gets, because it's just like it's just comic book movies at the end of the day. You know, it's it's kind of a side effect of us having, you know, such a first world country in a sense. It's like we're people getting up
social
in arms
media
over
platforms.
This shit. Yeah, you think people in Syria are fucking doing this shit, or wherever the fuck?
Yeah.
Sorry if that was a bad example. But someplace
we just
third
lost
world
our
or war torn or whatever, something like that.
Yeah, but thanks again for your comment, Ricky. And that is it in terms of the fan comments. Over to you, Andrew, with the shoutouts.
Oh, man. All right, Patreon supporters, let's get to it. Shasta, Leom O, Super Inframan, Douglas P, Dandy, Erin Willett, Nick Noir, Asker's Web, Jeffrey R, Eric J, Scott V, and now our other supporters as well, which are Sparkageddon, SDCT Productions, Robert Schumann, Kooky Noms, Matt Herring, Elijah B, Shamrock Balls, Ian H, Walter the Wobot, and John Wells. Did I miss anybody?
I think that's just pretty much it.
The list is growing. Thank you, everybody, for that. All right. So also, please, if you're not joined already, like these other people are, please join us at the Shasta Army, the $1 tier at patreon.com/superherostuffpod. That gets you the shout out, and then the $5 tier gets you the whole other show. We just did, Ben just regaled us with one on the Will Bill Justice League script, the unmade one, and that has been shown to have some interest online. So if you're interested in that, please check that out. The next one, is it going to be out by the time this episode's out? Yeah, I think it will be.
Yeah, it will be.
The Apocalypse Deep Dive. So check out for
Darkseid.
Yeah, be on the lookout for that one. And Superhouse merch, everybody. So superhousepod.com, superhousepod.redbubble.com, tpublic.com/user/superhousepodcast5000, and Threadless, superherostuffpod.threadless.com. Get your Ben Man mug, get your Indeed Wizard shirt or whatever. And we also have the show logo as well on some stuff as well. Mugs, shirts, tote bags, all kinds of shit on there. So check that out. And then please leave us a review on iTunes. That will increase our visibility on iTunes. Yes, iTunes is still the most important thing in podcasting. It still beats Spotify, if you can believe it or not. We see that in our analytics every time to this day. Anyway, also please record us a little audio bumper. That's a little audio clip. And that can be anything, all the silly stuff that we record on for our for our sketches, or the little one sentence blips that I put on there sometimes, or whatever. Record that on your phone and then send that to superhousepodcast@gmail.com, and you too can be on the show that way. Also, new shout out, new call to action, if you will, for our sketches. If you guys out there want to take that from download it from Spotify or from YouTube or whatever, and make a video out of it, make an animation out of it using our voices, we would love you to do that. Just keep the show's name and hashtag in the video itself. That would be best. That way, no matter where it's shared, it's going to always be in the video. So it's somewhere in the bottom or in the corner or whatever. If you do make it, that would be helpful. And also hashtag in the actual description as well. But actually, even more important than that is in the video itself.
In the video. Yeah.
So if you got the gumption to do that, feel free. And then also, I'd like to personally know what kind of sketches would you like us to continue, or what kind of like we did the Pedo and Magneto one several times. Is there like a sequel to a sketch you want, or what combinations of characters you want, or something like that? Let us know. I'm Thunderwolf Drew on Instagram and Twitter. I'm Thunderwolf Lives on YouTube, also thunderwolflives.com. Search for me there for all of my Japanese game and anime and all that kind of, and also religion and culture and stuff, language, stuff like that on those pages. So that's it, Ben.
You can also follow us on Twitter at SuperhousePod. You can follow us on Instagram at SuperheroStuffPod, where we met Zach. My personal Instagram is at BenJuanWriter, and you can follow my cat, Alfie Pennyworth Cat, also on Instagram. The link is also in my biography. You can follow my website at benjuanwriter.com. That has my script for Gotham spec on there, and an additional thing, but putting this out there, but I have a independent comic book coming out soon for kids. My friend created the characters. It's called Earl E. Bird. You can go find the website at earl-e-bird.com. I did not do the art. It's done for kids. So, if you're a fan of this podcast, you have kids who are too young to listen to this podcast, but you like my stuff. This is completely kid-friendly, no language, no bad language, no graphic violence or anything like that, all for kids.
I do interrupt every third page, though.
Yes, Andrew does show up in every panel, so that'll be true to the superhero stuff you should know experience in there. But keep an eye for that, because the comic book will hopefully be released sometime this year. But the website and the store has already been set up by my friend who owns the characters and is in charge of it. So, anyways,
it was called Toe Jam and Earl.
Toe Jam and Earl? No, it's called Earl E. Bird.
That's an old Sega game.
Earl-e-bird.com. Anyway, over to Zach. Where can we find you?
You can find me as usual on the YouTubes, on the TikToks, on the Instagrams, all the same name, Zachary Jackson Brown Art. And you can go on ZacharyJacksonBrownArt.com. And I actually have some of these Smilex brand t-shirts.
Oh, nice.
That is a great
for sale on there. So
marketing, everybody.
That's right. If you're interested, I do have just about every size available still. But otherwise, you can just check out my art and go art yourself, like I said earlier.
Go art yourself.
Back to Ben.
Well, the marketing.
All right. Well, when we come back, we're going to get ambitious at trying to tackle both Part 4 and 5 in one episode. Let's see if we can do it. We might need to use some of Barry Allen's time-bending skills in order to pull it off, but I think we can pull it off, and we will catch you next time. Thank you very much. Signing off.